Hello, intrepid viewers. It's Dr. Lena, your in-house sociologist. I'm doing a mixed bag of things today because we're all distracted and traumatized in anticipation of the dreaded event that's just round the corner. However, Mother Nature might yet intervene. La Nina is in full tilt and there's an epic blizzard coming. Of course, the Yeti will say 86 million people were waiting outside and couldn't get in, but what's he actually going to do? He'll stumble onto the podium and then he'll vomit bile about American carnage and then he'll have to be wheeled off. I mean, I actually can't bear it. Over it. We're all over it. Cannot believe it's actually happening again. But just before we move on from the event that shall not otherwise be mentioned, of course, just about every musician in the Northern Hemisphere turned him down. But mysteriously, the Village People are performing. And I've been thinking for years, why haven't the Village People sued the Yeti for using the song? And to answer my own question, I'd bet any money they signed a record deal back in 1983 or something, and record contracts are notorious. You don't own your own work, you don't own anything. So I put it down to that. But they've agreed to perform. And I can only say, I hope they give the gayest performance of YMCA ever. I hope the cowboy's got his ass out of his chaps. We could yet be in for a retrospective treat here. Something to break it up, really and truly. So moving on from that, a couple of interesting developments in the sense, Amy Coney Barrett, who's definitely weird, hyper religious. She has adopted the rainbow family, and she's notoriously conservative. But she's actually come out against the Yeti in a couple of 5-4 decisions now. So let's just jump in here and have a little look at Amy Coney Barrett. I mean, you never know. She might decide that the legal system is on its knees and she's the woman to save America. I really don't care how they get there, but might be there. So, Amy Coney Barrett, if you're not into tarot and you're a new viewer, just relax, roll with it. There'll be more conversation. So, is she actually at this point going to stand up where it matters? Unfortunately, the immunity rubbish went through, but let's have a quick look at Amy Coney Barrett. Mhm. Well, she has got a conscience. That's news to me. But anyway, she doesn't. She's actually prepared to fight from it. I think she was a bit naive. I think she thought, I am joining the Supreme Court, this illustrious institution of legal greatness, and found herself under John Roberts, so to speak, and at the mercy of the filthy, corrupt, and useless Clarence Thomas and what's his face, Samuel Alito. She was a bit surprised and she's prepared to take up the cudgels. Here, she has a pact, which I think now is the other more liberal justices. I think this is on top of her. And this is my card for the Yeti on his stone throne. And I think she's actually quite freaked out about his ineptitude and where the country's going. Just imagine that. Someone on the Supreme Court. King of Wands. I think this is perhaps um, I'm thinking this is sort of another more powerful man. I don't think it's any of those I just talked about. It could be a legal mentor. So when she was cutting her teeth and building her experience, there was someone who was no doubt an arch conservative, but she massively respected him. And I think, I mean, unless she's having a seance and he's beyond the grave, I think she's been on the phone to him regularly going, how do I handle this situation? How can I push back? God, I hope so. Now, speaking of, at 5 minutes to midnight, Mitch McConnell, who is one of the most spectacularly awful human beings I've encountered in my entire political life, and he seems to have been here for 112 years. I can't remember a time without Mitch McConnell, can you? And so he has paved the way, one after the other, for every inept, dangerous Republican to step onto the podium. And just now, he's sort of hedging his bets. I don't trust him for a minute. You can't trust a man who's done all the things he's done. He killed those impeachments. If we want to point fingers, he stopped those two impeachments going forward, and Merrick Garland seemed to go to sleep for 3.5 years. But moving on, he is now not necessarily going to be a vote for confirming these cartoon appointments. Mitch McConnell. So keep an eye on that. I don't want to read about him, why would you? But let's just keep an eye on that space. Now, since we last spoke, Zuckerberg has said, no fact checking. There will be no facts on my platform. And he seems somehow proud of this. It's bizarre how fascistic and tyrannical these titans of social media have become. It's actually fully scary. And now this week, I'm sure he's got a million lawyers, but his main lawyer, who's been with him forever, stepped aside and he said, Mark Lumley, his name is, and he said, I will not support this descent into toxic masculinity and neo-Nazi madness. Couldn't have said it better myself. So my question is, will they begin to feel it? The Elon Musk and Zuckerberg, they're not old enough to be this wild and conservative. You know, have they no pride, no ethics, no anything? But will anybody be able to penetrate Zuckerberg? Will anyone be able to get there? So wouldn't you give anything to have one of these hugely powerful men stand up and go, look, I was just going down that path and now I'm throwing my weight and influence behind decency, free speech without hate speech, and allowing people a platform for a conversation globally. Then they might become a sort of an icon in a decent way. But will anybody, and I'm talking more in his personal world, politically, I don't think he thinks and I don't think he cares. But can we expect any shift? Now he's made this major right-hand turn. It's not even right, it's out and out fascism. It's just letting it go. Just toxic all the way. Let's have a look at Zuckerberg. Ooh. Is Zuckerberg's mother still with us? You can let me know in the comments. Now, people around him, which is what this is about, people who know him personally, are evaluating why he's made this pact for the devil, with the devil rather. Why? You know, even Elon used to be okay. I've never been an Elon Musk fan, but he wasn't this torturous, absolutely vicious, uh, homophobic, xenophobic nutcase, misogynistic, fearful, awful place that he comes from. So they're both too young to be in this space, but it's like they're feeding themselves and each other. So people in his family are looking. Why has he done that? He doesn't need any more money. He doesn't even need any more power, isn't it? So it's like he's just blindly going on here. I think his mother might have words. So depending on the relationship with his mother, I don't think she's impressed. If it's not his mother, it could be another auntie or someone who, a major matriarchal figure in his life who's not impressed. And I think he's come with this Ten of Pentacles, which is intergenerational money and stuff. It's like he's reached saturation point. Like I just said, he couldn't spend any more money than he owns already in 15 lifetimes. You actually can't. And saturation is the feel I've got. They're actually bored. Wow. These guys are actually bored. If you're wealthy, and I'm talking very wealthy, I'm not talking just comfortable, thank you. If you're an A-lister, you tend to only hang out with other A-listers. And they've worked out just because you're an A-lister doesn't make you an interesting person, doesn't make you exciting, doesn't make you a good thinker, doesn't make you anything that you're not inside. And I think they're bored. And we, the world, have to pay the price for these guys running the battleships around the edge of the bathtub. Oh, that's disappointing. Yeah, this isn't ideological. It's not ideological with Musk and it's not ideological with Zuckerberg. They're playing. Oh, you think they can't go any lower? All right, so just checking my notes here. Now, lots is happening with NATO. Let me tell you, as an outsider looking in. Um, NATO is beginning to treat the world as a different configuration than it has until this point. So during the first term of the Yeti, NATO was just hanging on, going, look, he'll end up going. We've just got to hang on, was the vibe. Now, to the astonishment of every sentient being, he's back. NATO have seriously got to reconfigure their alliances outside of America. So because you've got this guy who's a second world leader, the Yeti, right? He doesn't behave like a first world leader. First world leaders don't sell shoes and trading cards and baubles. No. So you're going to see, I think, configurations economically, which I'll get to in a minute, as well as militarily, outside of the US, which is no longer an inspiration to the world. Already, it is no longer a reliable ally. Right, so NATO is doing a lot of behind the scenes stuff. But my really big question for today is with these tariffs, and Canada and Mexico have no choice in this, they were not consulted. Do you remember NAFTA? Dear old NAFTA. What was it? The North American Free Trade Association or whatever it was. It paddled along for years. Then the Yeti came along, had to reinvent the wheel and gave us the unpronounceable Usamka. And then this, right? So Canada and Mexico as sovereign nations, remember the S word, Donald, have no choice but to push back. Who pays the price for a trade war? That would be everyone who isn't an oligarch. Even some oligarchs lose fortunes during trade wars, depending where they're getting their filthy money from. So, of course, it's the border states that get hit first and hardest. So, Illinois and the big northern manufacturing states and the southern states, but it's going to impact everybody. Agriculture, transport, absolutely everything. So, let's have a look here. I've been looking at Canada, but I want to have a look here specifically about the tariffs. Are Americans prepared to pay the price they're going to have to pay for this? I digress before I pull on the tariffs. Another famous Lena digression. The problem is why we're in this situation. I genuinely believe this. Because MAGA didn't leave the cult after 4 years, even 8 years, they've stayed in. And it's not only those that wear the hats and fly the Confederate flags on the back of utes while shooting out of the side of their car. It's not just that mindset. Enough people trusted this man with the economy. Are they mad? Are they delirious that many middle Americans thought, Joe Biden and the economy or the Yeti? How can this be? We won't go into the fine print of the election, but let's look at tariffs. What they mean, what are they, how are they going to impact all of us? All right. Now, in the middle, this is, I think, a combination of the Yeti and Musk. We've got a saying in Australia, might have come from the UK 300 years ago, but we say sarcastically, oh, I'm all right, Jack. Now, that is slang for being selfish, meaning everyone else at my work lost their job, but I kept mine. I'm all right, Jack, right? You know what I mean? Like, I've paid my house off. Sorry, you can't afford to put a roof over your head, renting or buying. Too bad. I'm all right, Jack. This is that vibe. Okay, so they're completely detached. What's the challenge? The challenge is actually talking to people like your nearest neighbors, like your closest allies, with respect instead of disrespecting people, which is implied in this image. Here's the business guy, you know, giving this woman a tiny, stingy tip. This is trickle-down economics, let's put it that way. Problem is, even the trickle's going to come to a halt with this. Going forward, this is going to be the ultimate wake-up call. For the last 7 years, this has been my Wake Up America card. And I think as this unfolds, people are going to be shocked into reacting. Oh, I didn't think he'd do that. I didn't think he meant me. But I voted for him. How come he's doing that? And people are going to at least start the process of a sort of waking up. But this is a circular argument because they're so strongly aligned. So you've got the working class aligned with the billionaires, wondering why it doesn't quite fit. Like it's a mystery. So they're going to go around in circles for a while. Right, they're going to go around in circles. Maybe it wasn't him. Maybe it was those globalists who did. They're going to delude themselves for quite some time. However, there's going to be a breakthrough. I can say this much. I'll get to that in a second. But his agenda, this is secret agendas. Now, Trump doesn't have a secret agenda because to have a secret agenda, you've got to have a bit of a functioning brain in order to try and hide something. So I think this is more these rogue tech titans with their agenda, and he's the puppet. But there will be a breakthrough, and people will realize, oh my God, if we all act together, instead of fighting each other, if we all act together, we can make a difference. Isn't that radical? Totally radical. Now, I'm the queen of snark. I also embrace Schadenfreude whenever I can, and one shouldn't because one should be a better person than that and not enjoy someone else's misery. However, I'm sorry, at least it was an unmanned rocket. But the rocket crashing, let's hope, was symbolic of the next phase. Okay? So you guys take care, and I'll be back. Write in the comments. Love your comments. Oh, you still there? Yoo-hoo. Don't move on yet. There was a very good interview with um, a guy, a millionaire on Midas Touch or somewhere. Anyway, I've got the link, which I will put up, and he makes a really good case and about wealth disparity in America, and I think it's worth having a look. So bye for now. Ciao, guys.